Do you want to get better results out of your AI coding tool? Well, it's all about context. Let's get into it. So, towards the end of the last episode, I realized that we were missing something in our AI coding tool. We weren't giving it enough context. And the reason I realized this is that it was getting into this endless loop of trying to fix things without really fully understanding the framework. And that's why it was failing to actually fix it and trying to invent stuff and overcomplicate things when really the library already has a function to do that very simply and out of the box. So, in this episode, let's look at some tips and tricks to give more context to your AI coding tool in order to get better results. Suppose you want to get better context from that open company's engine fragments framework in this case. Now, this could be any other GitHub repository. In fact, this could be any other website on the internet, essentially, that you could use this concept on. But let's focus on Git repositories for this example. You could just tell the AI to go get this URL. So you could copy this URL and go into the AI coding agent and say URL and then give it the URL and say, and it'll go fetch that page. But there's a problem with this. One, it's a little slow. In this case, it wasn't too bad, but it's a little slow. It's also not looking at the entire site. Really, all it's doing is essentially what you could do manually by going in here and inspecting the page and looking at the source code. So this is essentially what it's getting out of the box. Or another way to look at it, if we do a little curl command here, it's essentially getting all of this text back and then analyzing it and giving it back to you in a more readable format. So it's a start, but we can do better. One step up from this would be to use something called GitMCP. Now, not to be confused with GitHub MCP, which is something else. GitMCP is an open source project and they've made it available to everyone. You paste in your GitHub repository URL and then say to MCP, and it'll give you a link that you can use for an MCP URL. And it'll even give you instructions on how to use it in different platforms. Now, I've done this ahead of time for all of the different that open company's GitHub repositories. Let's go back into Kiro and we're going to navigate down here to the Kiro page and look at MCP servers. And you're going to click on the little edit button, which is going to open up by default the workspace config. So the workspace is basically the project we're in right now, but we want to go to the user config in this case because I want these MCP servers to be available in my case, no matter what project I'm working on. And what we're going to do is in between these squiggly brackets here, we're going to enter something. I'm going to go get them because I've made them ahead of time. We're going to get all of these MCP definitions. Now, this might seem intimidating if you're not used to coding too much, but it's not that bad. And if you notice back here on the GitMCP website, that's essentially what they're giving you here for different types of coding assistance. So most of these tools will give you that out of the box. Once that is entered here, just check for syntax. I'll hit save, and you'll see that it starts connecting to those MCP servers. Okay, and once it stops spinning and it says connected, you know you're connected. But we're going to run a little check to make sure that it is. We're going to ask the AI to use the MCP to get documentation. So we're going to say, there you go. It's calling the MCP tool, and we can see what it's asking it, and we can see what it's getting back. Now we can see that what it's getting back is actually some HTML. It has stripped some things away, so it doesn't have headers and footers and a bunch of other things that are irrelevant to what we're doing, but we could still do a little bit better. This is already quite good, let's be honest, because we're automatically going and scraping that Git repository to get all of this context, and now it's summarizing what it found. That's pretty awesome. So that's really cool. This is not just a copy paste from what it found on the website. It looked at the Git repository and tried to interpret it and understand what was going on and connect the dots. That's a start, right? Now we're getting somewhere. So how can we make this even better? Well, there's another tool out there that you may have heard of called Context7. Go to context7.com. There's no sign in here and you can search for what's available. It gives you access to literally thousands of different code bases that it can search through and get information about. So if we search for that open, it brings up all of that open company's different repositories that are available here, and more can be added. We can see that it has that open engine components, that open engine fragments. All you need to know for this is that we can convert this into an MCP server. If you click on MCP server here, it's going to take you to the Context7 GitHub. And they have instructions for pretty much every single AI coding agent out there, including an AI coder that we're using, Kiro, that was just launched a week ago or so. We're going to grab this and we're going to copy that. We don't need the whole MCP server thing because we already have a start. And we're going to replace everything here. Good. I'll paste that in. And it looks like we have an extra bracket here for some reason. So let me fix that. And we're going to save that. Now, we got rid of that other MCP server or that series that we had. But this one is going to give us access to just so much more context. And the thing is that this is going to be up to date. See, one key thing to understand about these large language models or these AIs that are helping you to code is that they've been trained on data sometimes that are a year or older. So they're not up to date. If a framework like that open engine that just got launched literally a few weeks ago is out on GitHub, it's not in the LLM's built-in memory yet. You need to use an MCP or give it more context to be able to work with it. So let's see what it did. Now let's ask it again, the same question we did earlier. Use MCP to get info about that open engine fragments. So it's going to ask you the first time you run this, if it's okay to run this command. What I do is I say auto approve. So it adds that. And later on, it doesn't have to ask you again. You'll have to approve the different commands one by one. But did you see how fast this was? This was way faster than the previous one. This is because they're using more advanced indexing and stuff like that to speed up the search results in the backend. But look at how fast it's giving us that context. This is amazing. So how do we apply this in a practical way? We've just given our AI basically access to all the documentation we could ever dream of. So much documentation that there's no way we could all read that in our lifetime. How can this help us in coding our project? Well, let's try something. I'm going to start a new session and I'm going to type out a prompt. So let's try sending it this prompt. Use MCP to get info about that open engine fragments and that open company components, then compare the state of our code base with their recommended approach and their available APIs. Basically, do an extensive code review grounded in the documentation from that open. After correcting a small typo, let's send it. Wow, I didn't expect it to come back with that much stuff. I'm honestly shocked. So it came back with 8 different things, major topics that we should look at. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the model that we're using. We're using Claude Sonnet 4, which is a really good coding model, but there's better ones out there that actually have a bigger brain. So the fact that this came up with such good answers is a testament to the amount of context that we gave it. You need to treat AI a little bit like another human. Another human won't be able to accomplish the task you give them if you don't give them enough context on the situation. If you just say, go write me an app, they don't know what kind of app to write, right? So this is the same idea. But because we gave it all that context, it's able to this very detailed review, not on things it's hallucinating, but on actual documentation for those libraries. So we're going to wrap it up for that video here, but in the next one, we're going to actually compare the results it gave us and see if it makes sense to adapt our app to meet this specification. See you in the next one.